I belong to you. I belong to you. Do just what you want. You're the one I trust, and I always be around when I need some loving, baby. No one else. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. On the channel, we got podcast interviews and content on all sorts of subjects: mental health, football, films, MMA and boxing, conspiracy theories, and a whole lot more. And today we are doing our first show on cricket. Been looking to do a show on cricket for ages, and it was just a case of finding the right people to talk to about it. And joining me to have a little chat about the upcoming West Indies and England series, as well as some other bits and pieces. I have former Glamorgan player Nye Norman. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
All good, mate. All good, especially after that little house version of Test Match
I enjoyed
special.
that. So, haven't heard that for a while.
Didn't want it to end. But, and then joining us as well, we have West Indian batsman, Mr. Kieron Powell. How are you, my friend?
I'm alright, how are you?
All good, mate. I was like, I'm pretty sure that I might get a copyright strike for that theme tune, so I might have to take it off eventually. But I had to put it in. And, so I thought, well, if I put the remix over it, maybe I'll get away with it. But we'll see when I put it up on YouTube. I might have to mute it. But there we go. So we're going to talk a bit of cricket and a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of baseball, Kieran, as well, which I'm quite looking forward to. I'm quite interested to hear that story. And before we do that, we'll do what I like to do with all my guests, really, is I do like quick-fire questions. So people, if they're not familiar with you, they can just get a feel for your interests and views. So 7 questions. You just got to say the first thing which comes to mind. So what I would do, because there's 2 of you, I'll ask the question, and then if you answer first, and then Kieran, you answer second, and then we'll just go through the 7, and we'll go from there. Okay, quick fire questions with Nye Norman and Kieron Powell. Let's go. Viv Richards or Brian Lara?
Brian Lara.
Oh.
That's a cop out if ever I've seen that. Let you off. Curtly Ambrose or Courtney Walsh?
Curtly Ambrose.
Ambrose.
I've got to agree with that. Ben Stokes or Ian Botham?
Ian Botham.
Purely Ben Stokes, modern game.
Fair enough. This is the hardest one, I think, of all of them. Joss Butler or Adam Gilchrist?
Gonna say Josh because he's a friend, so Josh.
Adam Gilchrist. It's not even
sure. Best coach in cricket?
Mark Davis.
I'll second that, Mark Davis.
There you go. And best roommate?
I say Chris Ashling at Glamorgan for me.
Interesting. I'd go with Jeremiah Louis from the Leeward Islands.
Okay. And the worst trainer you've ever been in a team with?
I wasn't very good. Mark Cosgrove.
Ooh, when people on the bus. I think let's just put myself in the safety.
Yeah.
And last question: best TV show of all time?
Only Fools and Horses.
Good shot.
2.5 Men.
Like it.
Big Bang Theory. Friends.
Good shouts by both. So that's the quick fire questions out the way. So now we're going to talk a bit of cricket. There's not like a load of cricket news going on at the moment where everything's been on hold. But there was some little bit of news which dropped earlier, which was that three Pakistan players tested positive for the coronavirus, which was quite interesting because obviously cricket's about to start back up following the break. And I guess, like Kieran, the other thing as well is I think it was it three West Indies players who chose not to go on the tour of England. Like, do you think it's like a genuine worry for cricketers and sportsmen as everything starts back up now?
I mean, everyone has different concerns. Obviously, the health concerns, the family concerns in terms of there's not much corona in the Caribbean currently. So when you do come back from a place like England, you don't know what the government's going to ask you to do in different islands in terms of restrictions before you're allowed to see friends and your family having been away for so already, and so many different concerns that players have. I mean, you have to just take it as an individual case per person, and I don't think I want to really be upset with anyone for pulling out in especially unprecedented times like this.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? No one really knows. Kind of, no one's used to dealing with this sort of situation, so it's kind of almost making it up as you go along, and everyone's individual circumstances are different, and what one person is concerned with, another person maybe isn't so concerned. If you're caring for someone or you've got a baby in the house or whatever it may be, it's gonna be different, isn't it, for each person? Um, what about you, Nye? Do you think like it's gonna be weird with no fans, isn't it? That's the main difference, I suppose, from a viewing perspective. But I was surprised that they like football started up now a few weeks back, really, even a month ago in Germany, where it's a full, it's proper contact sport. They're all over each other at things like corners and stuff. And then you've got cricket, which is completely non-contact, and they've waited this long to get it going. It seems strange, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, how they can allow some of the marking that goes on at corners, like you just said, is basically like rugby. So if they're going to allow that, I mean, apart from saliva on the ball thing, which is obviously quite a topical conversation, there is no real physical contact in cricket. Obviously, you high five when you get a wicket, but that's pretty easy to stop. Um, if the government allow things like football to go on behind closed doors, then I don't see why there can't be a reason for cricket to go on behind closed doors. The health issue, yeah, as Kieran said, obviously there isn't a lot of coronavirus in the Caribbean. So for those guys who are touring to go back to the Caribbean, that's obviously quite a concern for them, their families, for their loved ones. But I mean, in terms of the English lads, it's great for them. They get to carry on playing cricket, apart from the crowds, as per normal, really.
Yeah, and I think like I would assume at least most professional sportsmen, they want to get back into it, don't they? They want to get playing whatever their sport is, just to, I guess, get some form of normality. So the other thing, I guess, which kind of I've talked about this a lot on the football show, is when there's still like hundreds in the UK at least, there's still hundreds of people dying each day from coronavirus, and in parts of Europe, obviously, it's higher than that in America and stuff. Is like really does professional sport matter in the grand scheme of things? And I guess there's two ways of looking at it. On the one side, you've got, well, yeah, it's good to get that normality back, but then on the other side, people are dying. So is it important? Where do you stand on it, Kieran, in terms of balancing the two?
I think it's different in different parts of the world. See places like the UK, the US, mostly places like Pakistan and India, where cases are still relatively high. It's a different perspective where you have to look after the national care system, I think in places like the Caribbean or something similar to what Dana White has done in the UFC, where you've got remote islands for people to come in and start playing sport. It's a bit more feasible. The cases are a bit lower, and you can manage people coming into and out of bubbles, similar to what the NBA is trying to do. So it just all depends on the region of the world you're in and the amount of cases, as you said. I think in places like the UK where hundreds of people still die, um, I'm not so sure that sport is necessarily the first thing on the forefront of anyone's mind. Whereas in the Caribbean, where these countries have barren flights and hotels have gone back to a normal way of living, it's probably a bit more feasible at the moment.
So in the Caribbean, so obviously in the UK for the last 12, 13 weeks, it's been pretty much lockdown, very limited on where you can go and what you can do. Is that the same in the Caribbean, or has it been pretty much as normal?
Initially, I think for 2.5 months, it was pretty much the same. Over the past 2 weeks, you could say, curfews have been pretty much put back to midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning. Most businesses, bars, restaurants, everything are fully operational again. Um, it's, I think the sports are going to start to probably allow sports, and they've actually had meetings in St. Kitts and Nevis to discuss the opening of hotels and borders and stuff. A few other Caribbean islands have opened borders, places like Antigua, and these islands that are closed are expected to open within the next few weeks. So it's pretty much back to normal. Obviously, everyone still has to play their part, do social distancing, wear your mask. Try and protect yourself, and don't wait for the system or the country to protect you by getting ill. So you have to be safe in that sense. But I think it's a lot easier to manage as well. I have countries with just a few thousand people as opposed to the UK with a few million people.
Yeah, for sure. I think personally, I'd like to see, for the time being, it be compulsory for people to wear masks in shops and out in public. But that is slightly different for me in that because of my own health issues, I'm quite high risk for it. So like my kids and my wife and that, if they got to go anywhere, they'll wear a mask and stuff, which I understand is not, everyone's not in that same situation. But I think for the time being, there's no harm in asking people to wear masks. What do you reckon, Nye?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my missus works for the NHS, so every day really she's walking around up to the APE. It's not that hard to throw a mask on. It's a bit uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, protecting people. So that's the most important thing during the pandemic. Really, chuck a mask on. Gloves needs to be to protect people.
That's it, mate, isn't it? That's the one. Okay, so we're gonna move on to West Indies and England's upcoming series in just a second. There was a couple of other little things I was gonna talk to you guys about. Yeah, so Michael Carberry did an interview. I think it was with the Sun, just basically saying that racism is rife within cricket, within the sport, from the village level up to professional, international level. The lack of black coaches, because he pointed to that, and a few other points as well. Unfortunately, the interview which I saw was with the Sun, which means I was really begrudging reading it. But he did it with the Cricket Badger podcast. I haven't heard of that one, but I might have a listen because it's a really important subject. So Nye, what's your views on it, mate? Because obviously, you've played cricket from in the UK from village level all the way up to to professional level.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got a point. Have I experienced racism? No, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. His argument and issue is factually and statistically correct. The fact that there's only 5 black professional cricketers in Britain amazes me, and the fact that I think in the last 3 or 4 years there've been 1 or 2 international black coaches and no black coaches in the professional game in Britain is astounding, really.
Yeah, well, we were just talking just before we started recording, mate, and like you had Otis Gibson was one of the black coaches, and then outside of that, there's a massive lack of black coaches within cricket, and that's a problem. At the end of the day, when you think of not just cricket but any sport, they're made up of, particularly in the UK. You know, you look at football, you look at cricket, you look at athletics, you look at rugby. The black community makes up a massive portion of those professional athletes. But yet, when it comes to coaching, managing in football, there's suddenly there's a lack of coaches and top managers. Why do you think that is?
I think people are scared. I think people are scared to give black coaches an opportunity. I think there has to be a systemic form of racism in that. And that's not me saying that all owners of football clubs or cricket clubs are racist, far from it. But there has to be. Otherwise, you look at the likes of Sol Campbell, John Barnes is a great example. You know, these two were quality football players for their country, and they can't get goes at established clubs. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I know, like, people will straight away, they will go, well, Paul Ince was, Paul Ince got given a chance in the Premier League and he didn't do very well. But it's like, how one person having an opportunity doesn't negate from the fact that there's numerous other coaches of all ethnicities or all non-white ethnicities who aren't getting a chance at the top of professional sport. And like you say, it's got to come down to some form of systemic racism. And maybe within some clubs, some places, some governing bodies, maybe it's what's the word? It's not even, I can't think of the word, but it's like almost subliminal. Maybe it's not like they're thinking we don't want to give black people or black coaches, managers, the opportunity, but it's been like that for so long that they are scared to take that risk. I don't know. I think it's got to change massively. Kieran, what about you, mate? What do you think on this? Obviously, here's a question for you then. Have you ever sort of experienced racism towards yourself?
Not in cricket, but I have, unfortunately, at our school, Millfield, the school that me and Nye went to. There was this one guy that made some racist remarks to me. Fortunately enough for me, the captain of the school cricket team was also one of the leading rugby players. So he got the rugby team together, and let's say that guy never said anything else to me. And then there's another instance when I was playing baseball out in the US. My wife and I were at a Macy's store in Newport in California, and we were coming out of this store. I think for whatever reason there's an emergency closing of the store, but the usual entrances were closed off, so we had to come back to the main entrance of the store and be directed by a manager to a different exit. And so we're just asking this guy, where should we exit now? And then he just said over there, and then he was like, we walked off, and he's like, yeah, nigga. I was like, look, I took like maybe 10 steps, and then I stood up. And then my wife, she looked at me, and she's like, did you just hear what I heard? I was like, what did you hear? And then she said it. I was like, I didn't think that's what I heard, but clearly,
that's
like,
crazy.
And then, we went back. We went back to the guy, and he's like, did you just say that? And he's like, oh, no, I'd never. I was like, we've got like 1 million cameras, like we could zoom in on audio. Like this is the advanced world. And I think that's the situation with racism now. It's nothing new to black people, or it's nothing new that's been happening, but it's the advent and the advancement of cameras now that's now capturing all the different elements of racism within the world and bringing light on it. And as Noah rightfully said, it's people that are insecure and that are scared and are afraid to give black people or people of color opportunities for whatever reasons. that are the ones clinging on to the powers, the powers of privilege that haven't been given across the board to everyone. So it's not a fair start. But I think obviously this last incident with the George Floyd situation in the U.S. has really seemed to spark a massive change in terms of the global view of things. There are a lot more people trying to educate themselves now, and it is hopefully a step towards equality.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. I mean, unfortunately, as all the good work and all the, like you say, people trying to educate themselves and talk about, this type of subject, for every person you have trying to do it like that, you also have the idiots. And I mean, you probably get it. You probably see more of it in just because you've got so many followers on Twitter. But I mean, the last couple of weeks when I've gone on Twitter, it's a cesspool of just people just arguing constantly. And like someone will put something positive up about maybe Black Lives Matters or just something positive. And underneath it, you'll get 10 people going, all lives matter or white lives matter or something ridiculous. And it's like, that's not the point. It's not about all lives matters or Black Lives Matters. It isn't about white lives don't matter. It's about, at this moment, we need to educate police forces and in America, and we need to educate people that Black teenagers or Black people or people of color are, even though it's 2020 and you think like, so say me and Nye don't experience the same that other people do, but it's about educating people that it's still happening and it's still going on. It's like, I find it infuriating because it's 2020. Like, are we not better than this now? Are we as a human race not past racism? But unfortunately, there's still people who not only are racist, but they're brave enough, or I don't even want to use the word brave, but they're brazen enough to broadcast it on social media platforms. They've got no shame in saying it. So sort of going back to the cricket side of it, Nye, what do you think is the way to make sure that we do have a positive change in making sure that there's more Black coaches or coaches of color within the game and at the top of the game as well?
Only speaking from this country, I mean, I think more needs to be done to play cricket in the areas where there are more ethnicities. So intercities, places like Bradford, which are vastly Asian populations. You look at Abdul Rashid, Moeen Ali, these guys came from communities like that. So clearly there are cricketers out there that are in these communities. It's just a question of going in there, educating them on cricket or sports and the great game that is cricket. I mean, it's a great sport. You can go all around the world playing it. So if the government or the E.C.B. or local communities, whatever it may be, can do that, then I think that will then have a knock-on effect to these guys going on to play age group cricket, academy cricket, second team, first team, maybe international, and then who knows from there, really.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is Kieran mentioned something towards the start of the show about the expense of cricket. Cricket is quite expensive, with equipment and everything else and fees and that. If for people, if they are struggling with money and their kids want to play cricket, it can be quite an expensive outtake, for a year's cricket with the equipment and stuff. So it's about finding ways to make equipment available at an affordable price, and also or even making sure that clubs have got enough kit and equipment to provide those kids when they first start, because I think often, so I got 3 kids, my youngest is 11, and then there's a couple of kids his age where they wanted to start playing cricket. They went for the first time or the first few times, they just wanted to try it out and they really enjoyed it. But then after those first few times, they kind of asked the coaches, or, how much does it cost? They gave the parents, the fees and the and then told them, you've got to get your kit from here and there. And they were scared off. So you've lost these two brothers from playing cricket who really wanted to play because just of cost. So I think that's another aspect of it, at a kid's level. Okay, so we could talk about this subject for hours and hours. It's such an important subject, and I'm sure we will revisit it at a later date. But let's move on to the 100. So the 100's been moved to 2021. It's got all sorts of different rules and aspects to it. The basic format: 100 balls per innings. Change of ends after 10 balls. Bowler can deliver either 5 or 10 consecutive balls. Each bowler can deliver a maximum of 20 balls per game. You can have a strategic timeout of up to 2.5 minutes. There's a 25 ball power play. 2 fielders are permitted outside the 30-yard circle in the power play. It's an interesting concept. Kieran, what do you think of the 100 as a concept, first of all? And also, would you fancy playing in it?
Well, I think it's an interesting concept. It's not too dissimilar from T20. It's just 20 balls less. So it's not too much to wrap your head around as a player. I think it's going to be interesting educating the fans as to the big difference between the 100 and a T20 match. But ultimately, people just want to be entertained. So I'm not sure that it's going to be a hard sell for viewers around the world.
No.
Would I want to play in it? 100%. The types of players and the atmosphere that's going to be around the 100. I could see other countries quickly just, coming up with a 100-ball tournament of their own once it goes well within the UK. Obviously, the first couple of years, similar to how T20 started in the UK and then branched off to various different parts of the world as well. So I think T10 as well will play a massive part in the future of cricket. So there's going to be lots of different variations of the game, and you just have to embrace the evolution of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it won't be long before we get 100 international teams. I don't think, that's just my opinion. But I think that probably 5 years we'll probably see World Cup 100 games. I don't see why not. Do you think, Nye, that we'll see more players who only play certain certain forms of the game, particularly at international level, even more so than we already do with the 100 coming in?
Yeah, inevitably you will, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I do agree with the thinking that Test cricket is the pinnacle, because it is just that, it's a test. And the best players in the world will always be remembered for what they did in Test cricket. That's not to say that what they've done in one-day cricket or 2020 or 100 is forgotten, but ultimately Test cricket is the pinnacle as to where the best players want to be at. However, certain cricketers' body injuries, maybe aren't comfortable with the red ball. They can now have careers in the white ball game, and if there's more formats, one-day cricket, limited overs, and they can do that, I'm all for that. And I think you will see more people specialising in 20 over, 100 over 5 years' time.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think I'm a traditionalist. I'm a bit older than you now, and I used to play cricket, with your dad and stuff, and I used to love it. But I always viewed it, for me personally, as you had the before the 20. So old I am. There was no 2020 when I was younger, international level at least. So I always viewed it as T20, 50 overs, and then the test is the top, very top of the game. Now, obviously, back in the day, England used to play the same team for each one, maybe with one or two differences. And it was only when they started to play T20 specific players or 50 over specific players that their one-day fortunes changed. And obviously we saw the World Cup win in 2018, wasn't it? God, that's gone really quick. which we'll have a little chat about in a minute. Kieran, I noticed that there's a bit of a lack of West Indian players in those 100 squads. Are you surprised by that, mate?
Yeah, definitely. When you look at the names of the players that the West Indies have produced and their performances over time in these leagues, obviously you have the mainstream names, the Chris Gales, the Pollards, the Bravos, the Narines, the Russells, etc. But if you look at the next generation of players, the Purans, the Hetmeyers, the Kieron Powells, Sherfin, Rutherfords, I think they're just as exciting, if not more exciting, for the fact that they've got the template of how these guys have played, and now they're building on it. So there are lots of guys in the Caribbean now that people don't know as brands yet, but they'll be brands in the future.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you both about the kind of next generation of cricketers, both in the West Indies and in England or in the UK, because I am interested in that. I'm like fairly familiar still with cricket. Like I'm familiar with maybe the players who were kind of on the brink of maybe getting a call up for their international sides, but not so familiar with maybe some of those players on the domestic scene who are not quite up there yet. So I was interested if both of you guys had any suggestions for me and the viewers to look out for on the domestic scene in the West Indies and in England, maybe in the Caribbean League. Kieran, so we'll start with you, mate. Any young players?
I'm a bit of a caveman.
Yeah.
So I'm not too up to date with, unless I've literally played against you. But from those that I have seen, so let's start with the under-19 crop. I think that there's a fast bowler by the name of Sales from Trinidad.
Okay.
He looks like an exciting prospect. I think, obviously guys like Hetmeyer and those guys have already played international cricket and people are well aware of them. But I think there's this one guy called Sherfin Rutherford from Guyana. That could be really good, left-handed batsman. And there's young Casey Carty from the Leeward Islands. We're all hoping that, he kicks on soon. So, I'm sure there are lots more. But as I said, I'm so wrapped up in my own bubble most of the time.
What about you?
It's not a lack of talent. It's just a
yeah, I know what you mean.
Coming outside of my bubble.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I got to be honest. Nye, what about you, mate? Got any suggestions for kind of young players on the UK scene?
Dan Lawrence, Essex. He's in I think he's actually in the 30-man squad for the tests. If you look at his stats over the last 2 years in county cricket, I think he scored over 1,000 runs both years, averages over 50 in all forms, and that's including one day in 2020.
Wow.
If he doesn't get picked for one of these 3 tests, I'll be shocked. And then in terms of one-day cricket, Tom Banton at Somerset.
Oh, he's actually one of my favourites, mate.
He's
really
actually
big fan.
In the Welsh team.
Yeah,
he's in the Welsh Fire.
Literally, just as you said his name, I got down to the Welsh Fire team as I was scrolling through. They're going to win it, mate.
I hope so.
No, they got a really good side, though, mate. They got Steve Smith, Mitchell Stark, Tom Banton, Ben Duckett, Ravi Rampal, Qais Ahmed, a name which I cannot pronounce, but I recognise Liam Plunkett. Got some great names. Great team. Obviously, you've got Colin Ingram. How does Tom Banton count as a local icon for Welsh Fire? That's what I want to know. Because
it's combining Glamorgan, Somerset and Gloucester. And he plays for Somerset.
There you go.
Yeah.
See? Your knowledge there, mate. That's what you're here for.
Ravi Rampal's a good signing for Welsh Fire as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, and I missed out Johnny Bairstow, of course, as well. So, even without Johnny Bairstow, they had a pretty good side. But, I mean, any side which has got Tom Banton, Steve Smith and Johnny Bairstow in a limited overs form is going to be, you'd think, going to be up there in terms of runs, at least. Yeah. But, it'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Let's have a look. Okay, and what have we got next on the docket? So before we go into the West Indies England series, which is upcoming, I wanted to talk to you, Key, about the your little stint in America and your venture into Major League Baseball. So I guess for people who are not familiar with it, tell us, you were a West Indies international cricketer, and then all of a sudden you announced that you were going to give baseball a try.
Yeah, so basically what had happened is just like anyone who plays long enough for the West Indies, you ultimately run into some issues with the board. But the Los Angeles Dodgers had a scout that got in contact with my wife, who's actually my agent, and said that they'd like to have me try out to play baseball because of the similarities between the two sports. And it was quite an interesting opportunity, so I figured why not take the chance. And ultimately they had me training in LA for a few months and then over in Sarasota in Florida, where we had a workout day in front of like 15 or 16 major league teams. And then I actually had contract offers from a few teams as well. And
Okay.
it's ironic that the timing of it all, Phil Simmons had just become the West Indies coach for the first time. And he gave me a call and he said, I can see that obviously things are getting pretty serious with you with baseball, but, things are smooth on this end now. Like, you won't have any worries, and I'd like you to come back and play for the West Indies. And obviously cricket being my first love, there was never any hesitation in me going back. So I guess that was pretty much the long and the short of my whole sojourn into baseball.
Your decision to give baseball a try was if you'd not had any issues with with the board and off the field with the West Indies kind of governing bodies, or whatever you want to say, do you think you still would have given baseball a try, or do you think because of those issues you were more inclined to go and give it a whirl?
No, it's definitely because of those issues, because there were lots of things going on behind the scenes that, ultimately over time I'll be able to tell all of these stories. Obviously still being an active cricketer.
Yeah, of course.
And still valuing the rest of the career that I have left. I won't be able to give those details today, but
you can come back and tell them all. No, I understand that. What about you, Nye? Ever fancied a little bit of baseball?
Which type of baseball? American baseball or the old baseball down the parks? It depends.
Classic
No, I can't
UK.
say it. I can't. Football was my sport.
Yeah.
Loved playing football. And then it came to a decision at Millfield, end of sixth form. I had to make a decision: play football, play cricket. Sadly, when you're contracted, you can't play another sport for insurance purposes. They don't mind you playing five-a-side in a week or things like that, but yeah, I couldn't. So it was cricket, and it's always been my first love. But football's close second.
Were you better at football or cricket?
I'll let Kieran answer that one.
Was he better at football or cricket?
Well, he took. Didn't you guys go to the national championships?
Yeah.
Football at cricket.
Yeah, we won. Yeah, we won. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Talented boy. But you know what, Nye, it's surprising how many people who are decent at cricket are decent at football. Like, even when I was playing, like, I used to play with Nicky Robinson, and he was, he played for Glamorgan cricket, he played for Wales cricket, he played for Cardiff and Wales rugby, and same as his brother. I was all right at both, and there was a core throughout the side, and the sides that we play in the county side, which were all kind of playing, same level of football as well. And then, yeah, like you say, eventually you get a decision to make, and in my case, you choose the wrong thing, completely cock it up, and then realize in your mid-20s, I probably should have done that. But there we go. It is what it is. It's what it is. But okay, So we'll get on to the England West Indies series in just a second, but a couple of little questions for you both. Nyron, who is the best player that you've ever played with, apart from myself?
Yeah, you're a close second on this one, Si.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's it.
best player I played with, Shaw Marsh.
What about you, Kieran?
Shivnarine Chanderpaul.
What a player.
Yeah.
One of my favourite batsmen. I like the fact I remember when he first came on the scene when he was like 19 against England, and he would just bat for like 3 days and they just couldn't get him out. It was almost like after the first hour of bowling to him, they'd give it a real good go, and then after that hour they'd kind of just split the field and go, right, he's settling in for a couple of days now. But yeah, what about most underrated cricketers? Maybe overall, but also who you've played with. Kieran, we'll go with you first, mate.
Underrated cricketers. I think maybe Marlon Samuels.
Not bad shout at all. What about you, Nyron?
Played with Jim Allenby was a very good cricketer, quite underrated, had a good county career. In terms of world cricket, I think Ross Taylor doesn't get the credit he deserves for New Zealand.
I agree.
And probably as a bowling point of view, Neil Wagner from New Zealand. The fact that he runs in and bowls 6 short balls every over, he's not exactly 90 mile an hour either, but he's taken 250 test wickets. So he must be doing something right.
Yeah, can't knock that.
Exactly.
And last of these little questions, who is the greatest of all time for England and West Indies? Nyron, you go first.
England, James Anderson. West Indies, Viv Richards or Brian Lara.
And Kieran?
Oof. England, I'm going to have to go Alistair Cook.
Shout.
And West Indies, I'm going to have to go 3. 3 going to be Gary Sobers, obviously. Potentially the best cricketer ever. Viv Richards for entertainment purposes. And Brian Lara for being able to do things that no other human being has been able to do before or after.
I will never forget that that 501 not out. It was just insane, and it was quite close after he'd scored the record test score as well, wasn't it? He scored 375.
It was like a month after or something.
Yeah,
was it against Glamorgan, mate?
No, it was against Durham. There's
God for that.
There's a guy who does level 3 coaching assessors, and he's the wicketkeeper who dropped him on 9. And I don't think he's ever let it down, to be honest.
Can you imagine?
I know.
As a former wicketkeeper, I gotta say that's like what the nightmares are made of.
Yeah.
But like to a whole new level, isn't it? It's like there's one thing.
90 later.
There's one thing dropping someone on 9 and them scoring 100. There's another thing batting for 3-4 days, scoring 501, and you still can't get him out. Jesus. Right. So to finish this up, we're gonna preview the West Indies and England series, which starts in a couple of weeks, in detail because we're professionals. But first of all, I wanted to talk to you two about a couple of things, specifically Ben Stokes. Looks like he's going to be captain of England in Joe Root's absence because he's having a baby, or his missus is. Should Ben Stokes be captain? And if not, who should be? And Kieran, let's start with you.
Oh, interesting. I'm not sure that because of the demands on Ben Stokes already, but he doesn't necessarily bowl as much now, does he? He's more of an impact bowler. But when he does bowl, he pretty much bowls 15 over spells, which is interesting. So I'm not sure. I think that's a problem England have been having for the past few seasons, because I think before that New Zealand tour, they pretty much wanted to take it away from Joe Root, but they didn't, in their estimation, have viable candidates.
Yeah.
I think obviously Josh Butler being the ODI vice captain, if he's in the test team, is clearly an option. But given that it's just a one-off thing, I don't think that it would necessarily hurt for Ben Stokes to do one test match.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the similar kind of boat on it. I think if it was for the whole series or a long-term appointment, then I wouldn't give it to Ben Stokes. History tells us with English all-rounders, even the best ones, they don't always do, or even giving it to our best players doesn't always work out. And I mean, arguably, you could say that Joe Root has suffered under the captaincy with his own form. Ian Botham didn't do great as captain. Arguably one of England's best players of all time. For me, I like Josh Butler as a captain. I think he should play in the Test side. I think he should be England's Adam Gilchrist, basically, whereby when teams think they're through the English batting order, he can take the game away from them in an hour. He just needs that initial period to get in. And I think that's what they should have been doing for the last couple of years. Sometimes he's gonna get out early, but if he stays in for an hour or so, he's gonna score 50 to 100 runs, and that can change the Test match. And I think he's young and innovative in his thinking, his field placings, which, Ben Stokes would be as well. But I do like Josh Butler's all-round approach to cricket. He's aggressive. What about you, Naira? And where do you stand on this?
I think he's done so well for England without the captaincy. Why burden him with that?
Yeah.
He's England's best all-rounder at the moment, potentially best player. I don't think he needs that of the pressure. I don't think that necessarily means he couldn't deal with it, but I don't think they should rock the boat and give him that additional pressure. Josh, for me, would be an outstanding candidate, but the one that no one speaks about and I think should get a go is Moeen Ali. He captained Worcester to T20 Blast final and they won it. He's definitely worth his spot in the team. Obviously, at the moment, he had that break where he's coming back. But we spoke about having role models in the black and ethnic minority community. If he's captain of England and he's a member of that community, I think that would do wonders for the game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that side of it. Now, one thing I slightly disagree with, I'm not entirely sure that Moeen Ali is going to be someone who plays every game. And I think by making him captain, he makes him very difficult to drop, which is an issue. You need your captain to be someone who's going to be 100% in the side unless they're injured. And I don't know whether Moeen falls into that category.
It's a tough one.
Because, he did have that severe drop in form where his bowling wasn't great and his batting wasn't great. And, but then saying that he had a break, he came back and he did look refreshed, particularly in the one-day side of it. He looked really, he looked up for it. He looked game and he just looked like the old Moeen Ali. It's certainly a shout, mate, because he did very, like you say, at county level, he did very well as captain. And then, arguably, in this series, which starts now, you've got two of the best all-rounders in the world in Ben Stokes and Holder. Who is the better all-rounder, Kieran?
I think you have to go Jason Holder. Just looking at stats, he's number one Test all-rounder in the world. Ben Stokes is probably a more high-leverage player in terms of high-impact situations, but if you're looking at all-around performances, I think they're both probably par in terms of fielding. Jason's definitely a better bowler than Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes is probably a better batsman than Jason, but not by far. So I think both of them have played pretty much the same amount of matches as well. So we go.
I'm slightly less familiar with Jason Holder. Like, I've seen him play a bit, but not as familiar as I am with Ben Stokes, obviously. Does he have as many kind of game-changing performances? Like, obviously, over the last couple of years, in all forms of the game, we've seen Ben Stokes completely change, save, win games for England at various points. Does Jason Holder do the same sort of thing?
Across Test matches, more so with the ball than with the bat. But he does have that double century against England on that last tour to the Caribbean. I think if you're going overall, all-rounder across formats, I still think Ben Stokes will get pipped by Shakib Al Hasan, who's currently banned. But I think Ben Stokes is probably the second best overall in terms of across formats all around in the world. I think in terms of Test cricket, I'd give it to Jason Holder. In T20 cricket, it's hard to find anyone that replaces what Andre Russell does, bowling at 90 miles an hour and scoring 80 off 30 balls. And then in one-day cricket, Ben Stokes and Shakib Al Hasan are pretty much par. So,
about you, Nye? What do you think?
I had a look at the stats earlier. I think in terms of Test cricket batting, Ben Stokes, he scored, I think, 900s. Again, it's tough for us because we see a lot of Ben Stokes. We don't see a lot of Jason Holder. But as Kieran said, they played close enough the same matches. I think Stokes averages 36, Holder 33 or 34. So it's not much in it. And the wickets are a give or take 3 either way. So it'd be a very interesting battle this series, I think, between those two.
Yeah, is Jason Holder quite an aggressive player as well when he's bowling, Kieran?
Well, I don't think he could be an aggressive bowler. He's not necessarily quick enough to be as aggressive as.
No, I mean, but in his mentality, is he quite feisty?
Well, he's always looking to get wickets. As you have to these days, you can't be looking to just sit in and bowl long spells, or the days become longer than necessarily you'd need them to. But I think he's always looking to get wickets, which is good.
Yes, indeed. So, the West Indies squad, obviously, like we mentioned earlier in the show, there was 3 players, and quite important players as well, I think, who didn't come with them. But that gives opportunities to someone else. So it was Darren Bravo, Shimron Hetmeyer, and Kieron Powell, who declined the invitation to join the tour. Would they have been in the starting 11, do you think, Kieran?
2 out of the 3, Kieron Powell would have been touch and go. If he didn't play all 3 matches, he would have played at some point. But Darren Bravo and Hetmeyer for sure would have started the series. So I think it's a big loss. But where there's a big loss, there's a big opportunity for the guys that have come into the squad as well. Jermaine Blackwood has done really well in domestic cricket this season, and he's got selected. So I think that's a great opportunity for him.
But that's what you want to see, isn't it? Is when these players of all countries perform in domestic cricket, is you want to see them get given a chance at the international level. And that's what I've been sometimes critical of the England selectors for over the last sort of 5 years or so, is sometimes they don't give those opportunities to those players who are in form when they're in form. And then by the time they come in, they're going through a bad spell, or they're not as hot as they were. I mean, arguably, Tom Banton, they waited, I think, a little bit too long before they called him up. What about you, Nye? Would you agree with that kind of point of view, that England sometimes wait a bit too long to call in the form players?
I think it depends on how the national team are doing. If the national team are winning, like they have been in one-day cricket, it's pretty hard to tap Joe Root on the back at number 3, who averages 48, and say, sorry, mate, we're picking Tom Banton, who's playing for Somerset. Yes, they are there have been instances in the past where they wait too long. and there probably might even be moving forward. I think if Joe Root misses the first game, I think is a great opportunity for Dan Lawrence to play. Where he bats, whether that's 4 or 5, is again a contentious issue. But yeah, I mean, opportunity. Kieran said people not playing for whatever reason creates big opportunities for people.
Yeah, so here's a question for you then, mate. If Joe Root wasn't captain, would they have dropped him at any point in the last couple of years?
It would depend on
the situation.
Who would they would call up? No, I'm going to say no.
They'd have stuck with him, in your opinion, would they?
Yeah.
Kieran, so the West Indies squad for this England series is Jermaine Blackwood, Bonner, Craig Braithwaite, Shamra Brooks, John Campbell, Roston Chase, Raheem Cornwall, Shane Dowrich, Chima Holder, Jason Holder, Shai Hope, Alziri Joseph, Raymond Reifer, I apologise, and Kemar Roach. For people who are maybe not familiar with some of those names, who should we be looking out for big performances?
Raheem Cornwall, definitely. We play for the same regional team.
Okay.
I think that if the pitches offer just the slightest bit of turn, he'll be a very difficult bowler for the English batsman to face, because of the pace, the height that he has, and the skill that he has with the ball. I think it'd be extremely interesting competition between bat and ball. He's into, I think, maybe his 3rd test match, but he's got 250 something first-class wickets in just like 50 matches or something. So he's not averse to taking wickets, And I think Alzari Joseph, again, another guy that I'll play for the same regional team as. He's really matured over the last year and a half. I think you're starting to see those performances more consistently in one-day cricket. For whatever reason, he hasn't really played as many test matches as I thought he has or should have. But hopefully he gets an opportunity in this tour, because the pitches will be fresh as well. There's not been any cricket played for the summer. So I think batting is going to be extremely hard work, because the pitches are going to be fresh, and they're going to be hard as well with all the sunshine that the UK has had.
Yeah.
So it's going to be extremely interesting.
Would you expect Raheem Cornwall to play all tests, all 3 of them?
Well, from all reports, the pitch, the practice surfaces that they've played on in Manchester so far have offered spin. As I said, just because of the nature of the time of the year, the weather. So if that's the trend throughout the country, then I think Southampton is known to be somewhat of a spinner's deck as well. Am I right now?
Yeah, but Old Trafford will turn a lot, because if it gets dry, looks like concrete, and they turned the square around not so long ago. So I'd say he'll play at Old Trafford. Maybe not the first test at Rose Bowl.
Since they turned the square at Old Trafford, it's taken more spin, hasn't it? And the pitch is a lot harder.
Yeah.
Kieran, the other guy, Jermaine Blackwood, he made a really impressive start to his career, test career, but he struggled the last couple of years to really cement himself in terms of runs. But he's shown that he's perfect. He's really capable of putting together an innings. Is he someone who maybe is under a bit of pressure?
Well, I think coming back into the team, he won't necessarily be under pressure. I think that pressure should be absorbed by the guys that have been playing for the past 2-3 years.
Yep.
Someone like Blackwood coming back into the team off of a good domestic season should be allowed, a bit more leeway to go and express himself. Obviously, he's done a lot to be reselected. I think he said that he's upped his training regime, and it's obviously paid dividends to the types of performances he's had last season. He got a double century against us, which was quite a long few days in the field for me. But hopefully he can do the same Obviously, if he doesn't get a double century, hopefully he could get some runs under his belt this season and push on from there because he's a good player.
Yeah, apparently he's going to bat in the middle order as well, rather than higher up, which is obviously be slightly different to where he started his Test career for the West Indies. Now, apart from potentially seeing Lawrence for England, who are you looking forward to seeing from the English point of view?
I'd like to see Matt Parkinson play, leg spinner from Lancashire. Any form of leg spinner for me is exciting.
Yeah, always meant it.
I think he toured New Zealand and South Africa in the winter, but didn't play. For me, if you've got a good leg spinner in your team, it's worth its weight in gold. And he has done really well at domestic cricket over the last 4 or 5 seasons. So if they can slot him in there somewhere, that would be definitely exciting to watch.
Yeah, that's the one thing England have lacked, isn't it? Is that having a genuinely world-class leg spinner. You feel like that would be. I thought at one point Rashid might be it, but he's just that little bit too expensive for Test cricket, unfortunately, because he gets a lot of turn. He's a very clever bowler. He's he's quite tricky to face, but at Test level, you've got to be so accurate and so what's the word? Like so conservative in the runs you concede. And I think he had a nightmare, didn't he, in that last Test he played, and they've not picked him since, which in some ways I feel sorry for him because they got after him a little bit, and you're going to get that, especially as a spinner, mate, as you know. But I do like Rashid. I like the way he plays his cricket as well, but I don't think he's the guy for England going forward from a leg spin point of view. Who would you pick as the wicketkeeper for England, mate?
Oh, this is a tough one.
Ben Foakes is so good, and he's
the best keeper. And I have to say, if you look at his record batting when he's played for England, it's phenomenal.
He's a very, very good batsman.
I can see the argument for picking all three. In the team, who has the gloves, I would give it to Foakes, but I think you could make room for 2, if not all 3 in the team. Yeah,
that's the thing, isn't it? Because they're also good with the bat. Like for me personally, Josh Butler is one of the first names on the team sheet for me. Is Josh Butler in the squad? I think. Yeah, he is, isn't he? I thought he was. Yeah. Just for a second, I thought he wasn't. Josh Butler would be first name on the team sheet for me after Joe Root. I think that what he offers both mentally for the team as an individual is second to none. Bairstow, if he can rekindle that form from a couple of years ago, is obviously good enough to be he's a world-class batsman. And Ben Foakes has shown he's got ability and he's a very good keeper. So why wouldn't you try and fit all 3 in? Yeah. But then it's like, who do you drop? Which is the thing. You got Mason Crane, Saqib Mahmood. What's your views on him, mate?
He's quite a quick, skiddy reverse swing bowler, and he is quick as well. Looking at domestic games, he's clocked at 90 mile an hour. So, and I think he's only 24, 25. So. That's quite exciting for England if they can get him fit and firing. He toured in the winter as well, so he's another one to watch out for, I'd say. But England's seam bowling is pretty strong, as I'm sure Kieran would back up. Yeah.
Kieran, do you think, obviously, Jimmy Anderson coming, you'd think, to the end of his career, Stuart Broad's not getting any younger. England need to be looking to the future from their seam bowlers' point of view?
Well, I think that's already sort of taken care of itself, hasn't it? Because you've got Jimmy and Stuart Broad, but then you've got Jofra and Mark Wood as first change bowlers as well. Don't forget, Ben Stokes is as good a bowler as any of them when he does bowl. You have Chris Wokes as well. So it's just to continue to build the pool because you still have 3 out of 5 guys, obviously, to replace 1,000 Test wickets is not going to be an easy feat.
No.
But you've got two guys learning under them in Mark Wood and Jofra Archer at the moment, who will obviously become your senior bowlers, and then you can add someone along with Chris Rokes and Ben Stokes, and that's still a very good bowling attack. And then you just, as you said, guys like Saqib Mahmood and all the others, just start building that pool, and whoever takes the opportunity will become part of that 4 or 5 man attack.
Yeah, it's funny enough. I think Chris, what we were talking about underrated players. I think Chris Wilkes is vastly underrated. I think he's a fantastic bowler. He's been so good for England over the last few years. It's a shame because I feel if they could keep Mark Wood fit, I think he could potentially be one of the best bowlers in the world. But he just doesn't seem to be able to string together, like a series without missing a game or two. And it's unfortunate because I don't think it's anything necessarily which he does. It just seems to be his body suffers with his injuries. And he bowls so quick off like what seems like no effort and no run up, which always kind of baffles me a bit. Okay. Nyron, who's going to win the Test series between England and West Indies?
Say 1-1 draw. Sit on the fence.
Don't get any splinters there, mate.
No, I know.
What about you, Kieran? What do you fancy?
I think I got the splinter because I'm thinking 1-0 as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm going to go with 1-0. No,
Oh, nice.
I think England might sneak it. I'm going to go 2-1 England because I don't think we'll lose any to rain. So I'm going to go for a 2-1. Are they doing a one-day series as well, or is it just 3 tests? Forget.
I'm not too
3
sure.
tests. I think you've got Pakistan coming right after as well. So I think it's just 3 tests.
Yeah. But whether Pakistan come or not is another issue now.
Yeah, well, they've got players that have tested positive for COVID now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, in the UK, they like up until I think it was like 3 weeks ago, they weren't testing people who were coming off, like flying in to the UK. So I don't think, from a UK government point of view, they will stop, the team coming because players have tested positive. Oh my gosh, they've updated that story, and it's now 10 players have been.
That series
tested positive. That's not happening.
No.
So they're supposed to be coming. What are we? So like the end of, they're supposed to be leaving next week, by the looks of it, to come over. They're never gonna go ahead with that test series. Or if they do, it's ridiculous. I've got to say. To have 10 players is a lot, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's unfortunate. I'd like to think maybe they'd extend the West Indies series to make up for it, but you just don't know, do you? Okay, I think that's everything we were going to cover. Let's have a quick. Was there anything else you guys wanted to discuss before we wrap up?
No, I think so. All good.
Kieran, that's what I was going to ask you. What are you up to at the moment? Like, where are you playing at the moment? What's your plans?
So I wasn't able to get back to the UK. So my wife is not too happy with all this lockdown stuff. But I've just been doing some physical training. Obviously, this has been like the best time for any athlete to improve your fitness because there's not much else that you can do in this time. So I'm up to running 6.6 Ks every morning now, every weekday. Which is quite a steady improvement from what I used to do. So hopefully at the end of the lockdown, I'm trying to aim to be up to 10K per day. So really fit. I've lost 35 pounds in the last 2 months. I've found a 6-pack, which I only thought I could get in beers. I'm really enjoying it at the moment in terms of my overall health and well-being. So I'm looking forward to getting back out playing as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Where who are you playing for at the moment?
Well, no one. There's no cricket on, but my regional team, the Leeward Islands Hurricanes, obviously made the most runs in all of domestic cricket in the Caribbean last season. Obviously, feeling a bit unfortunate not to have been selected in a 30-man squad to tour England, but
yeah, that was my next question. Is were you disappointed not to score that many runs and then not get into the 30-man squad? Was that disappointing?
yeah, it's a bit baffling to me. Because the guy that took the most wickets, or the guys that took the most wickets, didn't get selected as well, which is puzzling. So it's
Like,
it's
what more can you do? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
it's definitely it's, let's just say, performance isn't all that matters, I guess, or it's not a major priority for selection these days.
It's baffling. I don't want to push you on it because I don't want to get you into any trouble, but we'll discuss at a later date, shall we say. Now you're getting ready for the mighty Bluebirds push towards the playoffs.
Well, we started well on Sunday with a good win against Leeds, I have to say.
An expected win, that was, mate. That's what
it was.
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to have to go on the championship show on Friday and just moan for 45 minutes about how devastatingly bad Cardiff and Middlesbrough are. But no, it was a good start.
It was.
Don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but we'll see.
Can try.
Yeah, so guys, we'd have a live football show every Monday. It's the Andy Campbell football show where myself and former Middlesbrough and Cardiff City legend, Mr. Andy Campbell, we have a different football guest each Monday, 7:30. So this past Monday, we had former Liverpool, Stoke, Scotland international and current Reading midfielder Charlie Adam. We've also had recently, we've had Clayton Blackmore. We had Stuart Downing, who plays currently for Blackburn, used to play for Liverpool, Middlesbrough, lots of different ones. Who else have we had? Daniel Garridon, Robert Earnshaw. Next week, we've got a couple of very good ones. And we've also got our second live football show launching. So when this goes out, it was 2 days ago, last Friday. Every Friday, 7 p.m, we're talking the championship overall for 45 minutes of championship talk and some little interviews with some players along the way. So join us for that. And of course, we've got MMA and boxing shows and some top guests coming. And we'll be doing another cricket show very soon. Going to try and sort out some guests. I'm sure Nye will be back at some point as well. And I would like to think that Kieran will be back as well at some point. Guys, thank you for joining me. Surely. Kieran, it's been awesome, mate. Thank you. Once we jumped on Zoom, I don't know what was going on with my software. Didn't like Nye at all.
No one does, mate.
Well,
I miss his HP.
No, Nye, I appreciate your time, mate, and I appreciate your patience, guys, as well. Same to you, Keith. Cheers, guys. And,
no worries.
Guys, subscribe to youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation and follow facebook.com/AceCast for all the latest news and guests and shows. And we'll see you next week.
I belong to you. Do just what you want.